You, my counsel! Speak sense to this honourable fool!
I understand your misgivings, my lord. Truly, I do. It is a terrible thing we must consider, a vile thing. Yet we who presume to rule must sometimes do vile things for the good of the realm. Should the gods grant Daenerys a son, the realm will bleed.
I bear this girl no ill will, but should the Dothraki invade, how many innocents will die? How many towns will burn? Is it not wiser, kinder even, that she should die now, so that tens of thousands might live?
We should have had them both killed years ago.
When you find yourself in bed with an ugly woman, best close your eyes, get it over with. Cut her throat. Be done with it.
I followed you into war. Twice. Without doubts. Without second thoughts. But I will not follow you now. The Robert I grew up with didn't tremble at the shadow of an unborn child.
She dies.
I will have no part in it.
You're the king's hand, Lord Stark. You'll do as I command, or I'll find me a hand who will.
And good luck to him. I thought you were a better man.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Duncan.
And I'm Melissa.
And this is Game of Microphones, episode 47. Welcome back, Melly!
Huzzah! Thank you.
So good to have you back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling very Renaissance-y just because this episode, with the jousting and the whatnot.
Yeah, with the tourney.
Yeah, very Renaissance-y.
Nice. How'd you like this app?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say I have a confession, and I know I threatened to basically start watching all these episodes on par with the podcast. I basically jumped into season 1, episode 5. I mean, I've seen it before, but it's been a while, so I was like, I knew what was going on, but there was a part of me that was like, oh shit, I wish I would have carved out time to watch episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4.
It's all good. You're on demand, and if you need any refreshers, I'll be happy to provide while we're on the way. You got any questions or anything, just shoot. And I'm sure that the listeners
won't mind.
What's
that guy's name?
Jory. It's Jory. Just so everybody knows, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. We are rewatching the series from the perspective of someone who's seen the entire series up to Season 7, Episode 7, the Season 7 finale. So if you, if you haven't watched past Season 1, Episode 5, this probably isn't the best podcast for you to listen to. So you still have time to, impale your podcast player on Jaime Lannister's dagger. And
check yourself. You gotta get on that shit. Homie.
Yeah.
This is like, come on.
And then once you're done, come back and listen.
Right, come back. I know, I'm almost envious of people who like, oh yeah, I still haven't seen Game of Thrones. I know, it's crazy. I'm like,
know.
Oh my God. I almost envy that feeling of getting to see it for the first time.
Right, I still have that for Sopranos, so...
Me too. I've never seen The Sopranos.
Yeah, I've been saving it, so I'm looking forward to getting into that sometime soon.
Yeah, me too. Maybe we can get into it together.
Totally, we can podcast about it.
Sorry, that's a jingling of ice in a glass. I'm sorry for that sound.
Oh, it's so we know you're classy.
Yeah. My water out of a mason jar.
Yep. All right, so let's jump into it.
All right.
This is our top 5 highlights of Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 5, The Wolf and the Lion. What you got, Melly? What's your number 5?
Well, it's funny because, again, I didn't catch up with the first 4 episodes, but basically most of my top 5 are it's just a jumble of, like, nostalgia.
Nice.
Because it's been so long since I've seen season 1 and the actors that my top 5 was definitely like, oh, Ned.
Yeah.
Aw, he's so great. He's so lovely. What a lovely man. And then enters Robert, and I'm like, aw, Robert. He's so brash. He's a brash man. So, yeah, just getting transported back to, and Ned's still kicking it in life, and him and Robert's interaction in this episode, and kind of I jumped in right at the point where it's about to maybe start, going in another direction.
Yeah, Ned's still kicking for a couple more episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but no, it was really cool to get to revisit with Ned and Robert, and just really placed me back to the beginning. So
yeah, I know exactly how you're feeling, because that's exactly how I felt when I jumped back into episode 1 and seeing Ned and Robert and all these dudes that we haven't seen in a while. Barristan, even he's been gone for a little bit. It's really cool to see these guys doing their thing again. I love all these characters so much,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it was really like, I mean, this is just, I know a lot of people who can't handle Game of Thrones, and then I have my moments where I'm like, oh God, this is really violent. I definitely, it's, I don't know, maybe there are moments when it's probably not the best thing for your brain to take in and watch, but the writing and the character development is just so fucking good. It's just really, and it made me start thinking about all these kind of we were talking before also about all these other HBO shows, that how HBO just became this like mega hit making beast.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've loved HBO since I was a kid, and they'd play Beastmaster 18 times in one day.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I never.
That's when I fell in love with it.
I never watched HBO until Game of Thrones, I don't think.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I was a kid of the 80s, so in the summer, if you were lucky enough to have cable, which my dad did, we spent our time in front of the boob tube. HBO and MTV was what it was about.
Home box office activate.
Yeah. But no, it's just going into it, just kind of like, it was nice to be placed back with good old Ned and Robert.
Hell yeah, I feel you. And the writing this season is just so good as well, too. I particularly liked one scene that sort of stuck out to me, where Maester Lewin is having he's basically giving Bran his lesson in heraldry for the day. Back up at Winterfell, and they're talking about the different sigils of the households, and it's a good way to sort of give us the viewers a history lesson, and it's exposition, to some extent, but it's set it's written in such a way so that it makes sense, because this is something Bran would be doing and would be learning. So we're learning vicariously about the sigils and about the house words, and that these concepts exist through Bran, who's practicing it with Maester Lewin.
Right.
I liked how they're going over the Baratheon house sigil, and he mentions that it's a stag, and then he says now it's a crowned stag since Robert is king, and that's cool. Little details like that sort of give us a neat little history lesson of how things change and everything like that over time. So I really liked that. Really slick writing.
Well, and those are the little nuances and things that you, watching it through the first time, you just, you're not going to pick up on, or if you do, you forget or whatever. So it's, there's so much detail in the show, as most people who listen to anything I podcast on. I mean, it's hard enough, especially with Game of Thrones, to keep track of who the hell anybody is and where they're from, or at least my brain doesn't work that way. So going back again is definitely like, oh yeah, all right, okay. And it locks it in. So yeah, I don't know. Just my 5 was just being psyched to get back into, I don't. Even King's Landing seemed like fresher and happier. I mean, later on, King's Landing is just like nasty and crusty and
just so brutal. Everything
just brutal and horrible, and I don't know. And this, it almost looked, the outdoor scenes were like, oh, it looks like a lovely place to live.
Yeah, so pleasant.
So, yeah,
nice calm walks in the garden and
right.
soaking in the beautiful shit-smelling city.
Yes.
All right, so my number 5 is the Cersei and Robert scene, which is pretty cool. It starts with Robert sort of standing by the window in his chambers, talking about how if the Dothraki come over the seas, they wouldn't be able to withstand them. And Cersei's, like arguing against him, saying, they don't have discipline, they don't have armor, and funny little line. He's like, that's a neat little trick you do there, Cersei. You open your mouth and your father's words come out, which is pretty cool. And, what's the bigger number, 5 or 1? And she says 5, obviously. And he's like, oh, well, you'd think so, but really 1.
1.
There's, 5 fractured, separated armies versus 1 army where everybody's united. Like, that's the more powerful force. So that was a pretty cool little math lesson, army math.
Right.
Which is
army.
neat. And then they start talking about their relationship and their marriage, and it's just a really, really powerful scene, So they've been together 17 years, and Robert's wondering what, has held the kingdom together this whole time, and she says, our marriage, and he bursts out laughing, because just a ridiculous joke. They've hated each other for 17 years, and he says, how long can hate hold a thing together? And it's just like, whoa, that's a hardcore statement to, like, be saying,
right.
Talking to your wife.
It was odd, though, because it was that, but it was also this oddly tender moment.
Right, yeah.
Where she wasn't just outwardly seething of her, like, just vile feelings for him, and... actually, she laughed. It was in my notes. That actually was one of my things. But that she, like, literally guffaws. You don't see Cersei. I think that may be possibly one of the last times we'll ever see her laugh again.
Yeah.
So it was kind of oddly tender, because it was also just reminded you of life, and sometimes just in relationships in general, people stay together so long and they just get to the point where they're like, let's just be honest. Yeah,
it was interesting. They're sort of...
I'm just not really into you, and that's cool, whatever.
Yeah, they're like bonding over their hatred for one another, if that makes any sense, which is hilarious. And then, yes, it becomes even more sort of intimate when Cersei decides to finally, after 17 years, ask about Lyanna Stark. And she says, what was she like? And Robert's sort of taken aback. You've never asked about her, not once. Why now? And she goes over this whole reasoning, like how at first thinking of her just made her angry. So Cersei ignored the Lyanna aspect of the whole situation. And then she refused to mention it out of spite. Then it became clear that her spite meant nothing to Robert. So why now? What harm could Lyanna Stark's ghost do to them that they haven't already done to each other 1,000 times over? And one of the most heartbreaking moments of this series for me is Robert's response to this, where he says, you want to know the horrible truth? I can't even remember what she looked like, I only know she was the one thing I ever wanted. Someone took her away from me, and 7 kingdoms couldn't fill the hole she left behind. And that's like a serious statement by Robert. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure based on that, he would trade the kingship and everything just for a day with Lyanna Stark. You know what I mean? Just for a moment.
Part of me was like, wow, that was really beautiful. And the other part of me is like, man, you could have toned it down a little bit. Like, oh yeah, she was cool. She was all right. I mean, we had a thing. We loved
Play it cool.
my life has sucked ever since. No one could. I mean, I get it. Him and Cersei obviously have had no love, but
nothing could fill the hole she left behind.
Yeah, nothing.
And he has certainly filled a lot of holes to try to make up for it.
Right.
And,
right.
For me, I'm like, wow, that's like super sweet and like, sentimental and like dedicated. But then at the same time, I'm like, he wouldn't have been true to her, even if he was married to her. He was already out. What was it, fucking wars and fighting wenches or whatever he said back in the pilot episode. So I think it's a bunch of banter and idealism coming from him, but I don't think he would have actually lived up to the ideal that he seems to see in his brain.
Right.
Of this whole situation. So they're sort of talking, and Cersei tells him that, I felt something for you once, and he's like, I know. And even after they lost their first boy, which was discussed a couple episodes ago, you might not remember, Cersei mentioned that she told Cat Stark that she had a child with Robert who's black-haired, looked just like him, and he was taken by a fever, which is interesting because it doesn't really fit the whole Maggie the Frog prophecy type thing and everything. So people speculate if she maybe had the kid like offed or something,
right?
Which would be horrible. I don't think that's the case. I think it really was a natural death,
right?
But
that would have been Robert's only actual
his real heir,
child.
Yeah, his only legitimate child, yeah.
Yeah.
So she says, even after we lost our first boy for quite a while, actually, was it ever possible for us? Was there ever a time, ever a moment? And I feel like there's something going on, like she's trying to figure something out here, and maybe this might be the moment where she decides that she's gonna kill Robert once and for all, or have him killed, because he answers just no. Like,
yeah, again, he could have, like, oh yeah, I mean, sure.
Like, I tried, or yeah.
Yeah, that one time you brought me that beer or that ale was so nice. I really appreciated that about you.
Yeah, instead, was there ever a time, ever a moment? No, bitch.
Oh my God.
Does that make you feel better or worse?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Right when he says no, there's like a pang of pain across her face, and and she plays it off like you're saying he should have done. Does it make you feel better or worse? And she says, doesn't make me feel anything, and kind of just like shrugs and gets up and leaves. But that is bullshit. You could see her face before that, and twisted for a second, and in agony, and I think
she's not one to open up like that too.
No.
So that was actually a big thing for her to actually show emotion, just to have it shot down,
and then just shown no regard. Yeah,
right.
I feel like that may be the moment where she decides, nope, I'm gonna give Lancel the strong wine and have this guy removed. That was like potentially her, sticking out a tendril, a feeler to make that final decision, and that answer may have sealed Robert's fate.
Right,
which is kind of interesting. So I just thought this was a really powerful scene in a lot of different ways. Gives us an insight into Robert's psychology, an insight into Cersei's psychology, and how she lies to herself and to others, and tells the truth that she wants to be reality. And just really powerful scene. That line about the Seven Kingdoms, not being able to fill the hole that she left behind is super intense for me.
Yeah.
What you got for your number 4, Mele?
That little scene. Well, let's see. I never put my things in order, so I just decide as I go.
Sure.
That's how I roll.
Totally good.
Let's talk about Littlefinger. When you watch shows, just like when you watch any show in the first season, like sitcoms, anything, you can tell that people are really they're good from the get-go, but they're working with their character. They're
trying to find the flow.
And season 3, you see this character, and people, they're super comfortable, and it was just interesting in this episode. I feel like Littlefinger, I mean, he's amazing, but just seemed extra skeezy to me. I think in time, even though he is still just always super sketchy, and his intentions are normally not in the good place. By season 7, he's just a much different person, but same but different.
Yeah, his demeanor is sort of toned down. Like, he's still slimy, but he's less outwardly slimy, you know?
Right. Yeah, here you can almost see him open his coat and, like, see some, like, gold watches hanging, or, I don't, you know.
Yeah, he's, like, twiddling his mustache, you know?
Yeah, so there's a couple of really good scenes. There's the scene where he's talking about his brothels with Varys. I think it was with Varys, right? He's talking about the clientele that he gets at his brothels.
Right, yeah, they're standing in front of the Iron Throne conspiring, as Renly says when he comes in.
Right, but he's
what a
like,
crazy scene.
I would hate to be a brothel owner in that town. You know, he's like the, you know, people who want, you know, amputees and cadavers and young boys, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a
yeah. The devotees.
I hate to run that joint.
Devotees are people who are into amputees. I think I learned that on House.
Oh wow,
or something a decade ago. It just stuck with me.
But yeah, just Littlefinger seemed. But then Varys as well, kind of in that. I guess just beyond Littlefinger, there was definitely some, like, it's almost like compared to where they are now, if the character is still alive, it's like the over dramatized version of what the character gets honed kind of down to in the coming seasons.
Yep, definitely. That's so funny. Good catch on that. Yeah, I really I like that scene too. It was interesting watching it where, you know, they're both throwing accusations at each other and trying to keep each other on edge and talking about how they're, you know, how they've seen each other, and Littlefinger's like, oh, you saw me through your eyes. And he's like, through eyes I own. You know?
Right.
And so they're like, the depth of their spy infiltration is sort of seen on the table or put on the table. And Varys is like, I seem to have seen you recently. And Littlefinger's like, I've seen you even more recently. Just this afternoon, in fact, you know? And they're throwing barbs at each other. And
yeah, it was a sketchy off. That's what I called it.
Yeah, sketchy off. And
Littlefinger, very sketchy off.
Yeah, Littlefinger like really has Varys cornered for a minute there too. He's like, I seem to have seen you with a certain foreign diplomat today, and we're friends, aren't we, Varys? You know, I find myself caught in a place between where I have to inform the Queen or keep a friend's loyalty. You know, and I'm just like, oh shit, like this is serious. Like this is a pretty hardcore game these guys are all playing,
right?
You know, and then. Varys ends up getting one over on him at the end where Renly comes in, you two are conspiring, you better finish quick, you know, Robert's on his way to a small council meeting, and they're like, what, Robert's coming to a small council meeting? Like, that's fucking weird. And Varys says, yeah, you know, bad news from overseas, what, you didn't hear? So they keep, like, one-upping each other the whole conversation, which is really funny. I freaking love these guys.
Yeah, it made me remember, or not remember, but I was like, even though Varys was still in that first season, you're like, I don't know what to think of this guy. But, you know, by season 7, I'm totally team Varys.
Right, and now that we've, like, heard his more insight from him about his position more consistently throughout the years, little things that we may not have noticed at first because he's so goddamn sketchy are much more apparent, like when he's talking with Ned. And he basically shows up at Ned's quarters. It's this afternoon. That's the meeting between he and Ned that Peter Baelish was talking about witnessing through his spies. And he basically tells Ned that Robert is in danger. And Ned's like, well, why the fuck? I've been here for a month, dude. You didn't tell me this beforehand? Yeah. And Varys is like, well, I didn't trust you beforehand. You know, I'm a servant of the realm. And I wanted to, you know, before I talk to you about this, I wanted to make sure you could be trusted and that you'd actually help and that I wouldn't be putting myself in danger. And everything that he says here is consistent with his, you know, his stance later in the series, that he's, you know, all about being for the realm and everything like that. So it's kind of cool coming back and having the context to interpret what Varys says at this point of the story, and to see that, I think he really is legit and means what he's saying later, because it seems to be consistent with what he's saying in the first season. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's
I guess that's, yeah, I know. I almost wonder, like, the people who get to see this from the first time, I want to, like, almost study them as they go through.
Yeah.
And, like, take notes and then see how they feel by season 7. How do you feel now about that character?
Yeah, see what they notice, what sticks out to them.
Right.
How their read is for different things. Yeah, when I've rewatched the series on a couple of different occasions with people who hadn't seen it, and one thing that I like to do is subtly draw attention to things that will be important down the line, by commenting about it, not necessarily pointing it out, but just like subtly bringing it into the forefront of the conversation, right. I'll say things to mislead people so that they won't expect a big twist.
Right.
I love messing with people.
Man.
Yeah, I hate spoilers. Love messing with people.
There are a lot of twists in this show, that's for sure.
Definitely. So that wrap up yo number 4.
That wraps it up. All
right, my number 4 is Sandor Clegane.
Motherfucker.
A true knight. We get Sandor's first sort of redemptive act this episode, where he saves Sir Loras from his evil...
Sandor. No, I like him. Sorry, I was thinking of the mountain. I'm like, wait, what's the mountain's name?
Gregor.
Shit, no, I like him. No, I don't like the mountain. I meant motherfucker! Yay!
Well, even if you were like talking shit about Sandor, it's understandable at this point.
I'm used to calling him the Hound. That's true. No, yeah, he's yeah. All right.
He just ran down the butcher's boy and like acted all creepy and stuff.
That's
true. Loras picks a mare in heat to ride against Sir Gregor, and it makes his Sir Gregor stallion all crazy and it screws him up in the list. And Sir Gregor's unhorsed, and Loras is all like pumped about it. And man, just as an aside, did you notice Sir Loras's helm?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Jesus, yeah, his helm is like next level, intricately ornate,
beautiful,
just gorgeous. Makes sense.
Kudos to the costume.
Department totally. I remember that sticking out to me when we first watched it too. But now that I know more about armor and things like that, it really stuck out to me. Like, wow, that is a gorgeous thing. Oh, Valyrian Steel has replicas of that for sale too, I think.
Oh, wow.
ValyrianSteel.com. That's where I got my Hound's helm.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. Cool. I think when I saw the first season, it was actually pretty close to after I'd finished the first book. So it was interesting because I was still living with the images of what I was conjuring in my head and my imagination to what these characters would look like, and it was pretty spot on. But yeah, Loras's armor and the way they described him with the rose, I mean, it was perfect. It wasn't like, no, I don't. That's not really what I envisioned in my head.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I watched the series up until season 4, through season 4 before I read the books. So when I read the books, I was hearing the descriptions of the characters. They were sort of melding with the visual that I already had from the TV show, which is kind of cool because I see, like, when I think about Tyrion, I see Dinklage, but I see him like without a nose, and like a huge scar across his face. So I kind of liked that, having an image to work with already, and then having my brain sort of expand on it and like go wild with it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, Sandor is not all stoked when the mountain freaks out, decapitates his horse.
That was fucking horrible. I was not okay with that. By the way,
yeah. Neither was I. Sword. And the squire comes running from the other end of the list.
Yeah.
With this massive two-handed sword. Normal men would wield that with two hands or not at all. Like, you just use it ceremonially.
Right.
But Gregor is just one-handed, like, whipping that thing around like a beast. And for some reason, this actor doesn't seem as huge to me as I think he is. Like, he must be a big guy, because they're not going to cast an actor like a tiny guy to be the mountain, obviously. Well,
it's the same actor that plays him in Zombie Mode, right?
No, this is
it's not.
This is the first of 3 actors that have played the mountain. Yeah. So this is. Yeah.
I agree with you then, because at first I was like, that guy doesn't look as big as. Is that what you're saying? You don't think he looks as big? Yeah.
I don't really get like these huge vibes off him,
Right.
I was really trying to pay attention to how big he was relative to the things around him this watch through, because previously I don't remember being floored by how massive he was. And this time I sort of did see, like, oh, he is bigger than the Hound. Okay, so he's pretty big. And then when he was sort of storming off, he definitely was bigger, much bigger than the Kingsguard that was standing by the side of the list there, and much bigger than everybody else around him. But he's definitely nowhere near as big as Thor. Heifer Thor Bjornsson, the guy who plays the Mountain now, who's just
that dude's
beast.
huge.
I just turned 30. This guy's like 28 or something, and he's.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's like monstrous.
He's like 6'7". I mean, he's ginormous. Like, he's a big dude, and he's big. Yeah.
Yeah, he's beastly. Yeah, and Sandor, the actor, Rory McCann, is 6'6". So yeah, he's
really he's 6'6".
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And he lives off in a boat off the coast of Scotland all by himself, too, I think.
Of course he does.
Pretty interesting. I want to meet that guy.
Does.
Seems cool.
I wouldn't expect anything else from him.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love him, by the way.
Me
love
too.
him. I absolutely adore him. The Mountain, God damn it. Yeah, I was just like, oh, that's right. I did write a note here. I was like, I can't wait to see how he dies. ... Again.
Who,
like,
the Mountain?
For real this time.
Again, yeah. Yeah. And we get
he's so gross.
So gross. So horrible, just in every way.
Yeah.
And we get our Clegane Bull preview this episode. So the Hound steps up to save Sir Loras. He's just not having it. He's not happy about the Mountain freaking out and doing his thing here. So he steps up and jumps in the way of the Mountain's monstrous sword and fights him off of Sir Loras, saving his life. He's, unarmed. He doesn't have his sword. Mountain just, ripped him off his horse. He's completely taken off guard. And the sword fight is pretty intense, man.
Totally.
The Hound is a skilled swordsman. There's no question about it. He is every bit as good as Sir Gregor, if not better. And the only reason that Sir Gregor potentially has an edge, I think, is because of his strength, which may just push him over the edge, and maybe his reach could be at play as well, combined with the extra length that he gets off of being able to wield a huge sword. So I don't know. I just love the Hound. Great to see him do something good. This is his first thing that he's done this series that makes us sort of humanizes him and makes us respect him a little bit. Standing up for not the small folk, but the little guy in this circumstance, protecting Sir Loras. And, Sir Loras thanks him afterwards and says, "Thank you, sir." And he says, I'm no knight.
Right. Yeah, he's
great.
Grumpy. He's so grumpy.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And Sandor, he's got an interesting psychology. It's not described in detail exactly how it happened in the show, but when he borrowed Sir Gregor's toy when he was younger and Gregor flipped out and held his face in the fire, it was a toy knight. So Sandor sort of idolized knights and knighthood as a young child. And when Sir Gregor, his evil, horrible older brother, became a knight, it sort of tainted the concept of knighthood for Sandor and made him realize that, the stories are bullshit.
Right.
Knights are largely scumbags.
Right.
And this is sort of like a lesson that he imparts to Sansa over this series. Kind of opening her eyes to the truth of that, and it things he says, plus obviously things that Sansa witnesses, help her come to this conclusion. But there's the concept of a true knight, someone who's chivalrous, someone who protects women and protects the small folk. And out of all the characters we've seen on this show, I think Sir Gregor is more of Sir Sandor, the Hound.
It gets confusing.
Yeah, I think he's really more of a true knight than many characters we come to know or see.
Oh yeah, I've morphed to absolutely love him. He's one of those characters where you're just like, oh god, this guy's really, he's intense. I don't really like him. But then further on, you're like, yeah, I really like what they do with this character, and that must be really cool for him as an actor to, not that he all of a sudden becomes like super happy, but he, he gets to really transition in his character to go from potentially hated to all right, you're cheering for him.
Yeah, and that's I've been predicting and watched it come true for about 10 years now. The rise of TV and the movement of like big movie stars over to the TV medium. Mm-hmm. Something I've been predicting for a while. As the technology has become cheaper and the production quality of TV shows has become higher, I've predicted that these big actors would want to have the opportunity to do exactly what we're talking about now, to flesh out a character and have a real character development over countless hours on screen.
Totally.
So he's really lucky to be able to do that with this character, and it's so cool. Yeah, and we've seen that happen with a lot of Hollywood actors now are jumping over to TV, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean it's not to get too off subject, but I mean, yeah, the film industry, which I still love, and I love a good movie, but I mean between, all the streaming content and even, games being as cinematic as they are and performance capture and all this stuff. Quick thing, I went and saw an evening with Andy Serkis last night here in LA. It was a BAFTA Presents type of thing. Now, Andy Serkis, of course, is Gollum. He was King Kong.
Oh, cool.
He's Caesar the Ape. I mean, and he's done a ton of on-camera stuff as well as himself. But just hearing him speak kind of what we're talking about, how, it's nowadays it's really morphing, and with things like performance capture and online streaming and games and all this stuff, we're in a weird place where it's just moving quickly and it's changing, and it's giving actors like so much more of a range as opposed to just locking into like doing a movie or
It's so cool.
Yeah, it was really rad, but we can talk about that later. But he's just one of these, just real, before I forget, at the end of their sword fight, when Robert stands up, enough, he cuts it off,
know. In the name of the king.
In the name of the king.
I command you to stop this madness.
But then the hound just like boosh, drops to one knee, sword in the ground, and it was like right after Sir Gregor or whatever had swung, but it was like this totally one of the most awesome choreographed
beautiful
moves ever. I was like, damn.
It was during the swing, so he kneels with the sword into this pose, and the mountain's blade just comes right where his freaking neck was,
I know, it was amazing. But it was also one of these, not whew, that was close. It was almost like the hound he's just so badass that he knew that would, there was no chance that sword was going to get him. I don't know.
He's on next level. He's like, the mountain's going to swing for my fucking head because he's a son of a bitch, kinslayer, asshole. Yeah. So he ducks to below where his neck would be and knows he'll be safe. And that's the other cool thing about that fight too, is that the hound is mostly defensive in that fight. Where the mountain is going for his fucking head, he's trying to kill his brother here, and the hound is just sort of fending it off and not really being offensively attacking where he could. So it's just interesting to see the different, the different goals of these two brothers. The mountain doesn't give a fuck. He'll kill his brother. He'll be a kinslayer. Doesn't give a shit, basically. And the hound is trying to be honorable. And does obey his king and whatnot at that moment. So it just gives you, it's cool. It gives us sort of an insight into the capability of the hound, because nobody else on the fucking planet, aside from Oberyn Martell, would essentially volunteer to jump in and fight the mountain.
Right.
Jaime Lannister probably wouldn't.
No.
I can't really think of anybody that would. So the hound is the man, basically. Really cool to see this play out. I love this freaking character. So yeah, that's my number 4. What about your number 3, Millie?
Well, let's see.
What
do I talk about now? I keep jumping in on basically all the things that you're talking about. I'm like, that's one of them anyways. Because I was going to talk about the mountain, and goddamn it. But you were technically talking about the hound, Sandor. So
we can talk about whatever you want, Millie.
Well, let's see. Let's talk about the nudity.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. I had forgotten that the first probably couple seasons, at least, maybe even a few, were so heavy in the nudity department. And it's not just the women, it's not just the boobs.
Yeah,
and
not this episode at least.
No, we get to see junk.
We got a full-fledged dick. Yeah.
There's some junk going on here, and it made me feel a little sad for Theon's future.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to get too pervy here, but I was like, damn, that's a loss of a good cock. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I went there. The ladies
sadly.
and men, whoever is into it, will probably agree with me on that.
His cock is pretty famous, I think, right? It's known throughout
I don't
the
know,
land.
is it?
Yeah.
Where have I been?
When Ramsay has him captive, doesn't he say, like, he wants to see his famous cock?
Oh, right. But no, I just, and then there was, I don't know, I'd forgotten how kind of gratuitous in the nudity and sex and all that stuff, the first episodes were.
I love it.
And if that's too racy, you can edit that out. I don't know if kids are watching this.
No,
Listening.
It's totally fine. In my opinion, if it's covered on the show, it's fair game here.
Yeah, I know. Right? How dare she say that? Wait a minute, you watch the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, though, it made me think, though, just because, and I know, again, with the character development, we're kind of past the like, oh, we're all hanging out in our kingdoms and having sex with whores and blah, 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 blah. Now everything's super intense and everybody's on the go and it's all about war, but there really isn't nudity anymore. It's like nobody's getting laid anymore.
Yeah, not much. We got the occasional boat sex.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Occasional boobs from the fire, like when Dany comes out of the Dosh Colleen.
Yeah.
Boobs.
Boobs. Yeah, no, even like, what was it, Tyrion after he, he kills,
Shay?
Who does he kill?
Oh,
Tyrion.
Wait.
No. On this episode, Tyrion kills a random soldier.
The tribesmen. Yeah.
Right. And, oh God, here goes me and my name thing. Help me out.
Bronn.
Bronn, thank you, says, is that your first? And he, he's obviously kind of like shaken. And, he really went to town killing that dude.
The shields, too. The guy had
like
a big spiked mace club thing, and Tyrion comes and takes his legs out and bashes his face in with his shield.
Repeatedly.
Didn't even have a weapon, and he killed the guy. And he's a dwarf. Damn, dude. Like,
right. It was pretty brutal. And
beast
then Bronn
mode.
was like, is that your first? He's like, and then the first thing he says is basically like, you need to go find yourself a woman and get laid.
Right. And then he classically refers to a cat. If she's willing, so am I.
Right.
It's hilarious.
So, the sex and the nakedness is alive and well in season 1.
I love it too, man. I could, I'm happy with some sexposition any day of the week.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
That's part of the draw of the show, and a lot of HBO shows, depending on the show. Not all of them are all about, have that content, but they have the freedom to put it in there, and it's realistic,
Yeah. I'd like to, and it's not like nothing's happening either during these scenes. Like, Roz's tits are hanging out, Theon's dick is hanging out, but they're having an interesting conversation as well.
Totally.
We're learning about Theon's past, and we're getting more set up for Theon's betrayal as Roz taunts him about being a ward and how he's like about how he's loyal to the Starks and whatnot, and sort of learn the mindset of Theon in this episode a little more, and it's
he's kind
interesting.
of a brat. He's like I know Theon. Part of me was just like, oh, come on, Theon.
Yeah,
dude,
totally.
You have
Such
no
a brat.
idea what's gonna fucking happen to you.
I don't want to pay for it.
I know, like you.
Well, get yourself
turd.
a fucking wife, then, dude.
Yeah.
And even before that too, we when during the heraldry scene where Bran is learning about sigils and recalling his knowledge of the house words and everything, they mention the Greyjoys, and Theon steps in and says, "What, famous for their seafaring and love making and failed rebellions," but he must be pretty known at this point for his exploits with women. If he's bragging about how his family's famous for love making, so
right.
That sort of it makes sense with how Ramsay refers to his famous cock and whatnot. And we had a listener who wrote in and said, Theon's dick, R.I.P.
Oh,
we'll get to that in the feedback later, but it's hilarious.
I'm not alone.
No. Like, Yeah, it's
well,
man.
and it's not all about like the look of it or whatever. It's also just like, oh god, it's so painful to see someone totally equipped and to like, oh god,
they're just totally disarmed,
be just mutilated. Ugh. Anyways, so I just thought that a fun little side jaunt into the world of nudity.
Definitely, I love it. All right, my number 3 is the Tyrion Cat Lysa storyline in this episode, which I thought was fun. We get a taste of how clever Cat can be right off the bat when they first meet up, or when we first meet up with them as they're on the East Road, and Tyrion is sort of prodding her for information, and discovers through his clever questions that they're not on the road to Winterfell, that they're on the East Road heading for the Vale. And damn, Tyrion is smart, man. Like, Cat was real smart, too. Loudly proclaiming that they're heading to Winterfell so that the word would get to Tywin Lannister, and he would send people to rescue Tyrion, and they would go completely the wrong direction. Although, may not have been the smartest thing to send potential Lannister troops to Winterfell to her unguarded sons.
Right.
When she's not there to protect them. But, it was the heat of the moment, throwing the Lannisters off her trail, really slick and from that perspective. Tyrion, just mental giant, being clever, asking about the Shadow Cats and the clan, the hill tribesmen, the hill clans, and discovering by her answer that that's the last thing to worry about, that they're not going in that direction, north, that they're heading east to go to the Vale. So, ceaselessly impressed by Tyrion's mental agility and acrobatics and just these little games that everybody's playing. It's just really creative writing, really, really, really well done stuff. And so Tyrion's trying to get her to untie him, which is funny. And they all of a sudden are attacked, and we get to see Bronn in action for the first time,
right.
Which is just a gift to the audience, because this guy is amazing. Just cutting down people in every direction. Like, Arthur Dayne is the best of all time, according to various sources. Rickard Stark, we learn in this episode, said that Barristan was the best that he had ever seen. So there's his opinion on that, which is interesting, because Arthur Dayne would have been around. Rickard would have seen him, but he said Barristan was the best. And Bronn, man, like, I am hard-pressed to imagine Bronn ever losing a sword fight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's one of those characters. Yeah, there's like, you do not doubt that this guy is going to prevail in all battles. Everything about him, his personality,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's badass.
He's gifted. He is gifted. And I noticed, I've noticed on a number of occasions, we got a pretty good view of it this episode. He's got a kukri, which is a neat, very heavy-bladed sort of machete type thing, where you hold the handle, and the blade goes forward and then cocks downward, like sort of the opposite way you'd expect a blade to point. And I have a kukri that's almost identical to Bran's, so...
Oh, wow.
I was just looking at the details of it. Yeah, my friend brought it back from Nepal as a gift to me back in college.
Cool.
Really cool, yeah. I love it. I just polished it up the other day.
Nice.
Really, it's a hacking weapon, though. Like, it's made for, like, crushing skulls, essentially, right through skulls. A lot of weight in that blade. So that was cool. I noticed his kukri, which he uses... very recently, even the loot train battle, when he's fighting against one guy, he has it on his back, and he whips it at the guy riding on his horse as they're sort of playing chicken. And in Season 2 in King's Landing, he, during the battle, right before the Battle of the Blackwater, he's in a bar and singing with the Lannister troops, like singing the Rains of Castamere or something, and the Hound walks in and sort of eyes him up, and there's tension between the two. And I think it's the scene where, the Hound basically wants to fight Bronn. Like, you're a talker or whatever. I don't like talkers. I don't remember how it goes. Or maybe that's the wrong scene. But Bronn is facing off with the Hound in this really tense moment, and he reaches behind his back and puts his hand on his kukri, like he's about to whip that out at any second. And then it gets interrupted by the attack occurring at Blackwater, and they decide, instead of fighting, to just have a drink together, which I thought was really cool. It sort of set up a future potential friendship between the two. So maybe we'll get that season 8. I'm really hoping that would be an amazing duo. Imagine that.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I hope season 8 is able to... I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. The Hound and Bronn back to back, just fighting off dozens and dozens of undead. Like, that'd be so cool.
That would be amazing. Well, in this episode, speaking of friendships, in this Bronn and Tyrion kind of... Because they had their thing going for a while, too. They're nice. They banter well.
They do. And Tyrion definitely caught Bronn's ear this episode again by saying, word has surely gotten to my father by now, and he'll be willing to pay a hefty ransom for me, and you see the camera cuts to Bronn, and he sort of perks up and starts paying attention. Because a Lannister always pays his debts, And so that plays into the scene in maybe the next episode when Bronn fights for Tyrion in the place of Jaime in his trial by combat at the Vale. So we've all these little things leading up to that. My first watch through, I didn't realize that it was Bronn who had been with them the whole time, and then he took gold from Tyrion to give up his room at the inn outside Winterfell. He hears Tyrion talking about how Lannisters pay their debts now, and then when the time comes, he steps up to fight on behalf of Tyrion because he knows he's going to get paid big time, and he's got the skill to pull it off, right? So little things setting up that trial by combat a couple episodes from now or whenever that is. Just really, really good writing. Lots of little seeds being planted all over the place. And then we get to the Vale, and Tyrion, Tyrion had warned Cat, like, when was the last time you saw your sister? 9 years ago? Well, she's always been a little touched. But now, like, you might as well just kill me now, because she's off her fucking rocker.
Well, that's my... Where are we at?
This is my number 3.
Oh, you're still on your number 3. Okay, because that's my number 2.
Okay, just go right into it. Number 2.
The Vale and Lysa. Holy shit. She's so intense. Oh my god. Yeah, you're kind of just like, whoa. Like, I mean, she is off her rocker. She's batshit cuckoo bananu.
Cuckoo bananu.
Cuckoo bananu. And what's the kid? Robin?
Sweet Robin.
Sweet Robin. Still suckling at his mother's breast. And whenever if a woman wants to breastfeed her child until he's very, very much so, what is he? I don't know, 6, 7. He's a kid, but it just with her craziness of it, it just seemed like this total, like, just almost like kind of like, oh god. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it was just kind of creepy.
So creepy. And Kat is looking at her like, oh my god, like, what has become of you, sweet sister? And Tyrion's look in Tyrion's face is priceless too. He's just like, like, what is going on up here?
Yeah.
Is that the bad man?
Mummy, I'd like to see him fly.
Yes.
You just might see that, dear boy, dear child, whatever. Yeah, I mean, the Vale in general is just like, oh god. I mean, and the setting, of course, just adds to that intensity of like, this is not where I want to spend Christmas, It's like just kind of fucked. Tyrion's, I think there's a name for it. I remember reading in the book, and I can't remember. There's an actual name for the cells that they...
the sky cells.
The sky cells, yeah.
Yeah. Like, how crazy is that, man?
But part of me was like, well, I don't know. There's like dungeons where you're locked underground, and you'd probably feel claustrophobic and panicked. At least here you'd be able to see outside.
Oh, they're just tempting you to take your own life, though.
Exactly.
And the really scary part about the sky cells is that the floor is angled to tilt towards the abyss.
Right.
On the sky cells. Some more angled than others, but you got to be real careful when you're falling asleep in a sky cell so you don't roll out.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really crazy. Just the architecture of this castle itself is incredible. Did you take a good look at it when we first see it here?
Did I take a good look at it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a mountain, but it seems to be like almost like a hollow mountain.
Yeah.
So there's like these spires of rock and a giant hollow cavity in the middle, and I'm just thinking like geologically, how does this form geologically? And then how do they build it? It's like Machu Picchu times 1,000, where they somehow managed to bring all these monstrous stones up to the top of a mountain to build this structure. And in the books, it's even more. The journey to the top of the Vale is even more harrowing.
Right.
Like you have special goats or goat-like creatures that you ride, like mountain goat sheep type things that are like super pro at walking up and down like the tiniest little rock steps. It's almost like intraversable on human feet. And it's just like a real ordeal to get from the bottom, like multiple hours to get up to the top of the Vale. And if you're not physically able, they will winch you up with a lift system that they have as well.
I feel like someone in the book, did take the winch system up.
I think Tyrion may have.
Yeah, it was someone. I remember reading about that and how like, oh god, yeah, it was kind of freaky.
Yeah.
It's that
super
whole
sketchy.
Kingdom is, but what's the word that Bronn used or someone used and impregnable. And he, of course, comes up with some awesome, clever thing to say about how...
Right, yeah. Tyrion goes, the Eyrie. They say it's impregnable. And Bronn goes, give me 10 good men and some climbing spikes. I'll impregnate the bitch.
Right.
Which is great, because that's referenced again in season 7 as they're planning on taking Casterly Rock. Tyrion is, it's the scene where they showed the Grey Worm and the guys infiltrating through the little hole, the cave at the bottom of Casterly Rock, and how Tyrion had built in a secret passage when he was doing the storm drains and stuff, master of sewers for his father. And he says, a good friend of mine once told, they say Casterly Rock is impregnable, but a good friend of mine once said, give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch. And yeah, just a classic line. It's clever. It's disgusting. It's amazing. And just having Lysa be the, current the bitch
ruler of it. It's just kind of, I'm feeling super brain dead because I honestly, and I don't know if I want you to tell me because I don't know if I want the spoiler alert because I'm going to watch ahead, but I cannot remember what fucking happens to her.
Oh, really?
No, I can't
I'm not
remember.
telling you.
I mean, I know the little precious prince is still around, Robin.
Yeah, you can't remember?
But, give me a hint.
Your sister. I've only loved one woman all my life. Your sister.
Oh, was that little finger talking? Oh my god. All right, I'll figure it out.
Amazing. You're going to love it.
Yeah, Does she go flying? Does Mommy go flying?
Does Mommy fly? Well, I can't tell you now.
All right.
It's one of my series top 5, though, so...
Okay, all right.
It's beautiful.
Well,
Season 4.
I'll get on it. I mean, I'm feeling super inspired just because I've been so busy I haven't been able to watch, but I'm going back. I'm going back to 1 and I'm going to see it through. And
nice.
It'll probably take me so long that by the time I'm finished, that's about when season 8 will be coming out.
Hey, that's our plan, basically.
Yeah.
1 a week forever.
Forever.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyways, that's all I had to say about that. Just the Vale. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And Lysa.
It was beautiful. Everything about, the Vale is gorgeous, and the it's just so twisted. Everybody, like her suckling her babe still, even though he's no longer a babe, and just super awkward, and everybody thinks it's weird, even Kat. So yeah, I agree. All right, my numero dos is Arya and her little scene where she stumbles upon the skull of Balerion, the Black Dread. And the skull seems to be angled slightly differently than it is in the current season. Like, it seems to be sitting differently. If it's the same
close
skull.
to that door. What in the other one, it's a little shoved back more in the middle. I don't know. I don't remember that.
Right, so maybe it's not even the same skull.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, it's cool. And it's interesting. The books, the skulls, the dragon bones are all black. And I'm giving you guys little book details that aren't spoilers just to entice you to read. Because we got this big break in between seasons. You're going to love it. Just read them. And email me and I'll send you a free audiobook to get started.
Sweet.
Yeah, as long as you haven't received one from a friend already, Audible will let me give you one. But yeah, she's chasing her kitty cats, learning to be
I was
swift.
chasing a cat.
And
what were
Ned
you
kind
doing
of
in
like
the
rolls
dungeons?
his eyes. Great, chasing a cat. And he does this like thing that he does all the time in this season. So she's hiding as she hears two voices approaching, having a very interesting conversation. He's found one bastard already. He has the book. The rest will come. And when he knows the truth, what will he do? The gods alone know. The fools tried to kill his son, and what's worse, they botched it. The wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats. We will be at war soon, my friend. What good is war now? We're not ready. If one hand can die, why not a second? This hand is not the other. We need time. Khal Drogo will not make his move until his son is born. You know how these savages are. Delay, you say. Move fast, I reply. This is no longer a game for two players. It never was. Inaudible.
Wow.
Yeah, so what?
That's good.
What the hell's going on here? What are these guys talking about? So they're talking, obviously, it's Varys and Illyrio Mopatis, and for anybody who hasn't caught this, Illyrio Mopatis is the guy whose manse Viserys and Daenerys have been staying at. So the first time we see Daenerys and Viserys, they're staying at this fancy palace in Pentos, and this is this guy's house, this guy who's walking along talking with Varys here. Interesting. He's the guy who's whispering in Viserys' ear about how the common folk sow dragon banners and wait for you to come back. They wait to fight for their rightful king, and Daenerys picks it up as big bullshit, which it is. But what the hell is this guy doing over here? This is some teleporting early on in the series that people may not have noticed immediately. But yeah, they're talking about how their plan. They have a plan. They're in cahoots essentially to have Khal Drogo ride the wooden horses across the narrow sea to take back the Seven Kingdoms. Varys is talking about how they need to move fast. Mopatis, Illyrio is talking about how they need more time. It doesn't seem like they. Well, we know they weren't involved with the murder of Jon Arryn, but it's hard to tell from this dialogue that they weren't. It certainly leaves it up to speculation. Arya misinterprets their comment when she meets with her father after finding her way back into the city. She tells him they were talking about killing him, which is not the case. It's quite the opposite, actually, right? Illyrio says that one hand has died, why can't another? And Varys says, this hand is not the other. That could mean we don't want this hand to die because he's not like the other guy. We want this guy to be around. It could mean that he won't be as easily killable, theoretically, I guess. So it could be interpreted as they want him to die. But we don't really know what is going on at this point. So it's interesting to see Arya's reaction and to hear Varys talking candidly about his plan that once, since he's so slimy and secretive most of the time. They know that Ned has found Robert's first bastard, Gendry. He has the book. He's going to figure it out. It's just really interesting. What are your thoughts on this conversation? Any meaning sticking out to you or anything like that?
Not really, and now I feel especially dumb because you pointed out that I was kind of actually thinking they were talking about Ned as well. I was like, oh shit. That's how lost I was in that, because I wasn't sure who they were, and maybe that's my lack of seeing episodes 1, 2, 3, 4. I doubt it. It's the last place we saw Illyrio was
all the way across the sea. So even when we
Right.
had first watched it, I didn't realize that
Okay.
it was him over there. I think this is a common thing that people have no fucking idea who this is, basically. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that scene was just, I was a little like, I was kind of like, wait, I don't know what's going on here. So I thought it was just...
yeah, caught up in the mystery of it. Like, oh man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That's how I felt first watching it. I was like, shit, Arya is hearing some deep shit
Some
right now.
shit she's not supposed to be hearing.
Yeah.
Or is she? Maybe she's supposed to be hearing it. Maybe it's good she's hearing it, but then she, took it, I guess, out of the correct context.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Ned is sort of dismissive of what she's saying right off the bat when she comes back in. They're talking about killing you, and he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And she's like, they said you found the bastard and that you have the book and something about a savage, and he's like, oh shit, this is a real conversation. Where were you? Down in the dungeons,
Chasing the cat.
Chasing cats. Yeah, so just a cool scene. I liked getting the little taste that we know Varys is plotting to a revolution, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of implications for what that means, and what Varys' real motives are. Like at this point, if he thinks that Viserys is going to be a good ruler, like what's his real purpose? You know what I mean?
So he's still alive, obviously. Yeah, they were talking about
Viserys?
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Next episode 6 is called A Golden Crown.
Ah, the Golden Crown.
Which men will tremble to
Got
behold.
it. Okay, ouch.
He was no dragon.
This hurts.
Just a shadow of a snake,
Yeah.
as Jorah puts it.
That's a good one. God, I didn't realize that it got so only 6 episodes in. We're already at that point. She's already pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, so that's my number 2, is just that whole scene there with the conversation and Arya and Balerion or whichever Vagar, whatever, one of these huge-ass dragons. Just so freaking cool, man.
Well, then she somehow finds her way out, of course, and then she's at the gates and...
Yeah.
They're like, go away, little boy.
And she's like, yeah, it's so funny. I'm a girl.
Do you know who I am? Yeah.
Do you need to smack you on the ear so you hear better?
Right.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and then she confronts him, and they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
Probably look into this.
I'm Arya Stark. My father's a hand, and do I need to smack you on the ear so you hear better? If my father finds out you turned me away, he'll have both your heads on spikes.
Yeah. There's a lot of spikes on heads in this episode. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of those threats going around.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I guess, I'll just my number one's going to be kind of a hodgepodge of that. There was definitely Ned saying, fuck this, I'm out. Mm-hmm. And quit.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Exactly. Pretty much. And then, of course, I'll have your head on a spike. This whole heads and spikes and heads. If there was a musical, there'd be a whole number around that.
Yeah, totally.
And I'd love to see that. Hopefully it'll get made. Yeah, so that's, it's just interesting as in this episode, it went from jolly, again, for me, only seeing episode 5, them, having a kind of a good friend moment in the beginning to him, to Ned being like, because when Robert was trying on his armor and he's too fat and blah, 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 and they're, cutting it up and...
Find the breastplate stretcher!
I know, I wonder how long it'll take him to realize it doesn't exist, basically.
So funny, too. That scene starts out with Robert just, insulting his squire's mom. Like, your mom was a whore, and...
I am fat-ass whore or something, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, brutal.
But yeah, no, so we're leaving it with Ned quitting, and then of course Littlefinger's like, well, just hang around for at least evening, too bad you're leaving. I'm like, in my head I was like, just fucking go, Ned, get your kids,
Yeah.
get out,
Well, if you're not
go
in too
run.
much of a rush, I'll take you to the last person who John Aaron met with before falling ill.
I know, I was like, oh god, I know I can't change what's gonna happen, but it's kind of like, ugh. It's one of those frustrating moments in entertainment where you're just like, yelling at the screen, just go!
Yeah, this is that Godfather moment for Ned, where no matter how hard I try to get out, they keep pulling me back in. You know?
Exactly, and
they
do.
pull me back in.
Head on a spike. And then he ends up at the brothel, Littlefinger's brothel, and then
and we see another of Robert's bastards.
Yes, we see another, and the poor innocent mom. Please tell him how lovely she is, and
jeez, I feel so bad for this. I haven't been with anybody since him. He's always so nice.
God.
And then this poor baby gets freaking murdered.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah, that's brutal. That's one of those moments where you're like, should I be watching this?
Yeah, it's just horrible. And potentially at Joffrey's order. That's what we come to understand, right?
Yeah,
Joffrey
I think so. If I remember correctly.
Sending people to murder the bastards.
Yeah, I was kind of happy, just to touch on all my points, that I didn't have any Joffrey in this episode. I'm not ready. I need to build up to Joffrey. That's something I got to start from the get-go. I'm kind of glad. There was a little Cersei, and then, of course, Jaime. And then Jaime, he's another character, kind of like the Hound, who's really had just a total character, quite a ride in his character, because he, in this episode, I was like, God, I forgot like how he's such a pompous little shit. He's
so awesome though.
I want my brother. He's like, yeah, he's totally like, he's totally amazing. To now we see him, he's just super like kind of chilled out, and like, oh shit, kind of resigned to almost being the good guy, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Man. What a crazy scene that is.
Yeah. Yeah, him coming out with all the...
Jory says something about him threatening his lord, and he's like, oh, you don't want me to threaten him? Well, what if I say that I'm going to cut your lord from balls to neck bone just to see what a Stark looks like on the inside? I'm like, damn, the way he moves his sword and shit, like... He's a cool cat, man.
He is a cool cat.
You don't want to fuck with Jaime Lannister.
I was a little bummed that Jory had to go. I like Jory. That was horrible.
Since you haven't watched the other previous episodes yet, there's a moment a couple episodes ago where Jory goes to deliver a message to the king from Lord Stark, and the king's busy with a bunch of whores in his bedchamber.
A bunch of whores.
Yeah. And Jaime's outside on duty, and he's like, how many do you think are in there? And Jory's like, I don't know, 2, 3. And Jaime says, he likes to do this when I'm on duty, insult my sister, And Jory mentions that they had actually fought side by side on one occasion. Jory and Jaime Lannister. It was during the Greyjoy Rebellion when they knocked down the exterior wall of Pike, and Thoros of Myr went running through with his flaming sword, which is discussed in season 7. And Jaime and Jory were side by side, and Jory thought that Jaime was like amazing and whatnot and everything like that. And so it sucks that, especially after Jory tried to connect with Jaime and talk about that and how they had this experience together and everything like that, that Jory puts a fucking dagger through his head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just makes that moment all the more tragic.
Right.
And Jory was like he's Ned's right-hand man. He's like loved by all of Winterfell and all of everybody. Nobody seems to have anything negative to say about Jory, so it's just a really sad moment all around.
Yeah, I was not happy with that. I mean, I knew it was coming, but I was bummed. And that whole scene, and then he gets stabbed. See, this is where I'm like, okay, I need to watch this shit, because he gets stabbed in the leg, obviously, but then they all take off. So I'm like, wait, what happens next? I can't believe how, I don't know if it's all the pot I smoked in the 90s. I don't know what the hell. I'm just like, I have no fucking memory of what happens next. No, it's good because I get to relive
experience it again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The bonuses
the
of
90s were rough.
Memory loss. The 90s were rough.
Quite possibly the 2000s too. I don't know.
I'll just I won't add to the.
Yeah. I got you, bro.
So this is pretty interesting. We had another listener write in and mention the look on Jaime's face when Ned gets stabbed through the back of the leg by that spear, and he kind of looks up at the guy like, "What the fuck, man?" And it's the same look that Ned gives Howland Reed when Ned is dueling Arthur Dayne at the Tower of Joy in season 6, and Howland Reed stabs Arthur Dayne through the back of the neck and saves Ned, and he has this aghast look where, like, honor has been besmirched. The fight is no longer clean, you know what I mean?
Right.
Taken from behind in a dishonorable way when it's a one-on-one and a second opponent comes in and, you know, sort of dirty, like does something dirty and changes the course of the fight. So it's interesting, the parallel here between Ned and Jaime. There's actually like a lot of parallels between Ned and Jaime. I think I mentioned it on the previous podcast, but they're both sacrificed their honor in some way for the better good of somebody. In Ned's case, for the good of Jon Snow. In Jaime's case, for the good of the realm. They're both living with like a nasty stain on their reputation, and I don't know. There's a lot of parallels between the two, so it's interesting to see it portrayed physically, where they both have similar reaction to a type of dishonor in a combat situation like this. So I just thought that was neat. Mad props to our listener who pointed that out, because I wouldn't have noticed that otherwise. But we'll get to that in the comments as well. Ravens calls later on.
Yeah.
What a fight, though. I mean,
yeah.
Jaime Lannister is just like glorious in all aspects of, you know, his fighting style and his quick wit and just his confidence. He's a force to be reckoned with. And Ned is just, you know, Jaime looks like he's nervous at a couple points fighting Ned here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ned is never made up in the books to be like, especially like an amazing swordsman, but he's talked up quite a bit on the TV show. And even this episode, Barristan the Bold had said to him, you know, when it was the first scene of the episode where Ned arrives at the tourney ground and examines Sir Hugh's body, the guy who potentially may have poisoned Lord Arryn, Jon Arryn, the Hand of the King. And he's talking with Barristan, and he's like, you know, I'm glad we never met on the field of combat, Sir Barristan, you know, and Barristan, who's just a legendary fighter, fought his way through an entire castle just to save the Mad King when he was captured at Duskendale. Like, legendary dude, right. Unparalleled. Like, he and Arthur Dayne are like the top best guys. And George R. Martin has said that in a contest between the two, Arthur Dayne would win if he had Dawn, the sword. So apparently the sword makes a difference for that. Otherwise, they're comparable fighters. But Barristan responds to Ned and says to him, you know, don't be modest, Lord Stark. You know, I've seen you cut down a dozen great knights, you know. So it's just interesting. Ned had said when Jaime accosted him at Winterfell, you know, I don't fight in tournaments because I don't want a man to know what I can do when I fight for real, which is a solid strategic decision, I think. And he definitely takes Jaime off, you know, off guard here. He's much better than Jaime expected, and is just as strong as Jaime. You can see there's a couple scenes where they're kind of pushing the blades against each other,
right,
and like a battle of strength.
Out.
Yeah, balancing. Yeah, it's interesting how you do that. How that can happen with swords, leveraging the weapons to move in whatever direction you want and manipulate your opponent, off balance and whatnot. And Jaime is definitely taken aback by Ned. He wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was, so. It's good before Ned dies that we do get to see him sort of unleash a bit. And I also, seeing this scene again, I want to compliment the actor that played young Ned Stark at the Tower of Joy, because, man, their posture and sword stance is very similar.
It was well studied.
Well studied. Very well studied. Like, I'm clapping for this guy who played young Ned Stark, because he did an astounding job at replicating Ned Stark, in my opinion, down to the smallest details. It's just really cool seeing this again and being able to make that comparison and everything like that. Anything else you want to mention about this scene?
No, I think that kind of covers it. I mean, again, it's just, you know, being my number one just leaves it for like, oh shit, the next episodes are just going to get, you know, we know what's coming.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, one other thing to mention about this. We get to see sort of, I've mentioned before that Jaime is considered, you know, very talented fighter, but sort of a beautiful fool. Like, he doesn't have the most strategic mind. He jumped off the cliffs at Casterly Rock, 100-foot drops when he was, like a little kid, without even thinking twice about it. And we get a little taste of his lack of strategic capability in this point, in this scene, because he gets down off his horse and he wants to fucking fight Ned, right off the bat. He pulls out his sword, and at that moment I'm like, oh shit, because it's intimidating as fuck. He looks like hardcore. And Ned's like, oh, Ned is not confident in this fight, and you can tell because he says, well, if you kill me, then Tyrion's dead. Your brother's fucking dead, man, if you kill me. And Jaime sort of realizes that he hadn't even considered it. And he's like, you know what, you're right. Take him alive, but guys, So I thought that was interesting. We got a little taste of Jaime's sort of leap before you look type personality here.
Right.
Where he hadn't considered the consequences of any of this action that he's taking against Ned Stark at the moment. And it really propels things into a really bad place, this whole confrontation. So... yeah, there you go. Jaime's lack of strategy working against, everybody, really. It just sends everything into a spiral of chaos and horror.
Dun,
right.
dun, dun.
Yeah. So my number one is, you mentioned it briefly, is Ned standing up to Robert in regards to the Daenerys assassination, which I thought was really cool. And now, knowing what we know about Jon now, that he's actually a Targaryen, a legitimate Targaryen, living in hiding. That watching Robert talk about killing Daenerys and looking at Ned and his face and everything, you can see that Ned is thinking, this could be Jon that Robert is talking about. Like, killing Jon, a potential threat to the throne because he's a Targaryen, just because of his name. And so it just, Ned has given up everything to protect Jon, to keep him safe, keep his identity hidden, keep him away from Robert. And it's not gonna fly to let any other Targaryens die. Not only is it an innocent child, but it's his fucking, it's his nephew, essentially. Or his nephew and niece. Like, he is related to Daenerys Targaryen. I think that's something that's kind of glossed over when people talk about this, that, of course he, doesn't want child to be killed, and he could see it being Jon in the position of Daenerys, but he's actually related to Daenerys at this point. Like, this is his family that Robert is talking about having assassinated. His sister's husband's sister. So that would be his sister-in-law, essentially, right, at this point. So
that's a lot of family figuring right there.
Right. So this is, Robert's talking about having his sister-in-law murdered. And I just love it. He makes a stand. Ned is a man of principle. And this is some seriously horrible Machiavellian shit that that they're proposing. He's not going along with it. And Robert's like, you're my counsel this fool, talking to Varys. And Varys is talking about how if and this is a conversation based on ifs. If the Dothraki warlord rides across the sea, then it could result in the deaths of thousands of people and houses and kingdoms in the Seven Kingdoms, and could be horrible and all this. And this is some seriously Machiavellian shit, like I was saying, sacrificing a child, for the theoretical benefit of thousands of people in the future, the ends justifying the horrible means. There's a lot of interesting philosophical stuff going on here that they don't really articulate, but that people who are familiar with this type of stuff are analyzing, as I am, sort of watching this, and it's just really intense. And I'm glad that Ned stuck up for himself, decided that the ends don't justify the means, that one child is worth, a kingdom, essentially. And it's a concept that is, it comes up again when Gendry is being held captive at at Storm's End, I believe it is, or no, Dragonstone, and Davos wants to free him, and Melisandre wants to kill him so they can use his king's blood. And Robert, or no, not Robert, sorry, Stannis says to Davos, like, what's the life of one bastard in terms of the 7 kingdoms? You know, and Davos responds, everything, which is really powerful. And
right.
I think that Davos and Ned would have been buddies to some extent.
I definitely 100% agree that I think they would.
Too bad we never got to see that, because that would have been kind of fun.
That got squashed pretty quick. In fact,
yeah,
at least an
pretty
episode
damn quick.
Or two.
Yeah, like
away
before
from now.
before they never were even in existence on the series at the same time.
Right.
We don't see Davos until season 2, I think, with Stannis, and so they never existed simultaneously in terms of what we see on the show. But yeah, I love how Ned takes a stand, refuses to go along with it. Mm-hmm. He says, I followed you into war twice, without doubts, without second thoughts, but I will not follow you now. You know, the Robert I grew up with didn't tremble at the shadow of an unborn child. Like, really putting it in perspective. Like, Robert, you piece of shit. Like, this is something that you would never... You fought against a king, and now you are a king, and you're worried about a little girl and a kid that's not even born yet. Like,
right.
Come on, man. Like, be a man about it. Don't resort to killing children. It's never okay. Okay, you know what I mean?
It really isn't generally, unless you're batshit psychopathic killer,
right? And look at how horribly the Mountain is looked at for having killed Rhaegar's his young children, Rhaenys and Aegon. You know, the Mountain dashed Aegon's head against the wall and whatnot. Like, nobody likes that. It's not cool, even if they're theoretically a threat at some point in the future. Like, you just don't fucking kill kids. And Ned is all about that. Like, he's all about the kids. So that's cool. I like Ned, man. So yeah,
I do too.
Yeah. He's the man. You're the king's hand, Lord Stark. You'll do as I command, or I'll find me a hand who will. Then good luck to him.
Go find him.
Yeah, good luck to him. I thought you were a better man. Drops his hand on the fucking table, and he's out. It's so badass.
So good.
So badass. And Robert's just left there to rage, because he knows he's in the wrong. He's just blustering about it. And when he's on his deathbed, he admits it. You know, he says, Ned, you were right. You were the only one that stood up to me about Daenerys. If it's not too late, stop it, And Ned tries, but the word has already been sent. Varys says those birds have flown. So Ned's doing the right thing, and only when Robert is dying does he finally admit to being wrong in this.
I was wrong.
Yeah, but at least he does admit it,
Right, exactly,
right?
exactly.
So that's good, and they sort of become friends again and everything, and yeah, and interestingly, we'll talk about that when it happens, but that's Ned's one moment of, like, true dishonor, almost, when he changes Robert's wording of his will, of his, his last will and testament of what happens after he dies. He changes my son to my rightful heir, to preclude or exclude Joffrey from being considered as the heir, because he's not his rightful heir. He's a bastard. He's not even his son.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's my my number one.
It's
Ned,
a good number one.
saying "fuck you, man."
Yeah.
We don't kill baby dragons.
Nope, we don't. We don't.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah. Anything else you want to add about that?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, it was just fun in general. I had a good time jumping basically midway into season 1.
Yeah, midway.
And seeing how everybody's so young and fresh, and the kids are actually kids, and it was just it was fun, and it inspired me that I need to get on it.
Great.
Rewatch.
All right. Kick ass. Okay, so with that, we will take a little break, and there's more to come, so stay with us. All right, we are back with news about Game of Thrones. Our first item comes to us from the AV Club. Kit Harington will delay the Game of Thrones filming so the cast can both go to the wedding.
Aww.
Or so the cast can go to the wedding. Last month, we reported that Game of Thrones Kit Harington and Rose Leslie had gotten engaged, finally giving Jon Snow and Ygritte the happy ending they deserved before they both got killed. Though one of them did eventually get better.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Of course, if you and your betrothed met on the set of Game of Thrones, you simply have to invite the entire cast of the show to your wedding, which is exactly what Harington and Leslie are doing. Unfortunately, their wedding is going to happen in the middle of filming for the show's final season, so Harington had to ask the producers if they'd be willing to pause the whole production for a bit.
Oh my God.
How crazy is that, man? That is
They couldn't
wild.
just wait.
I know, right?
But no, I mean, come on, he's Jon Snow.
We
The
don't
show
feel
will not
like
go
waiting.
on without him.
Winterfell can wait.
Winterfell can wait. Our wedding cannot.
So Harington told this story on the UK's Jonathan Ross show over the weekend.
Jonathan Ross.
I think I watched a clip from the Jonathan Ross show where he talked about pulling a prank on Rose as well, where he had his decapitated head in the fridge and scared the hell out of her. Hilarious. And she threatened to cancel the wedding because of that. It turns out that the producers were surprisingly okay with this request of postponing the filming. We don't know who he specifically talked to, but the producer in question is apparently so stressed about the final season that Harington says he's reached the peaceful level. It doesn't sound like there are any plans to film the wedding and air it on HBO for hardcore Game of Thrones fans, but hopefully somebody will release some fun photos at least.
Nice.
So good for you guys. Congratulations,
Yes.
guys. And I'm sure hearts are just,
Breaking everywhere.
Yeah. Our next article is from Bustle. Where will the Game of Thrones spin-offs take place? The new series could break new ground. You may know by now that as many as 5 potential Game of Thrones spin-offs are in development over at HBO. The only known information about the stories is that they are prequels. They will center on events from Game of Thrones history that fans will recognize, and that they will not feature any characters that we have seen before. So, where will the Game of Thrones spin-offs take place? That's probably the easiest question to start with, yet George R.R. Martin's fictional universe is so big that there are a ton of possible answers. All the best books have maps in them, and Game of Thrones is no exception. At least one of the 5 has got to take place outside of King's Landing, right? Actually, if we go back far enough in Game of Thrones history, the map won't look anything like what fans are used to on the original series. What if the series takes place outside of Westeros entirely, or before the wall was built? Still, it doesn't hurt to start guessing, and a setting mix-up will certainly make the opening credits exciting. Based on the potential plot lines, here are some locations that might be revisited in one of the spin-offs. Dorne. The land presided over by House Martell seemed to draw the short straw on Game of Thrones. They entered the story too soon and left too late. A spin-off may be a good way to expand on that world. Essos. Wouldn't it be cool to see an entire series set in Braavos or Karth? Game of Thrones fans only saw the other side of the narrow sea from the eyes of Westerosi-born outsiders like Daenerys, Arya, and Tyrion. It would be cool to see from a different perspective. Valyria. Remember when Tyrion and Jorah Mormont sailed through those ruins, almost to the latter's doom? Well, yeah, almost to both of their doom.
Yeah,
because
right?
Tyrion almost he sunk like Jaime there and was barely saved and revived by Jorah. That haunted island could be the setting for one of the shows. Westeros Uncharted. That'd be cool. I would love to see the Valyrian architecture and stuff. That'd be a lot of money though, so I imagine they're not going to do that.
All of these would probably be a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that one probably most and more, you're right.
Yeah, I think that would be the most expensive, just recreating this interesting, unique Valyrian architecture and stuff. If the series is about Aegon's conquest of the Seven Kingdoms, then the spin-off could cover a familiar landscape, just without all those familiar landmarks. But we would still have a lot of those because many of the famous castles and stuff were built before the conquest. So a lot of it would still be pretty similar. Winterfell's been there for like thousands of years and whatnot. The Red Keep and King's Landing didn't exist, but Dragonstone was there, the Eyrie was there, most places were there, Pike, so it'd be pretty familiar. The Iron Islands is another option. Speaking of Pike, a lot of the interesting Greyjoy stories that remain unexplored on the HBO series unfortunately involve characters that we already know and love, which rules out a lot of spin-off potential. That said, don't you want to learn more about the Seaside family, the Greyjoys? After all, what is dead may never die. The Crownlands is another option. We've seen King's Landing before, but not so much of the surrounding area. If the spin-off took on the story of House Blackfire, a now extinct family who rebelled against the Targaryens on numerous occasions. I should point out it's a Targaryen offshoot family, founded by the bastards of Aegon IV, the Unworthy. If the spin-off took on the story of House Blackfire, the setting would be not too different from Game of Thrones. There just maybe wouldn't be as many road trips.
Road trip!
Way, way north. If the spin-off is about the war between the children of the forest and the first men, don't expect to see anything south of Hardhome for a while. A spin-off about the original White Walker invasion known as the Long Night would have had a similar setting. Although I think that the war between the children of the forest and the first men sort of took place all over the Seven Kingdoms, and that they sort of just ended up, the children of the forest sort of like banished up beyond the wall. Kind of. So that we could see all of Westeros for that spinoff, I'm pretty sure.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Sothorios and Ulthos. Two places that show watchers would have no idea exist, and even book watchers would have no idea exist, because I don't think Sothorios is ever mentioned on the, like in the books even. It's just on the map. It's like the Antarctica type thing for Westeros.
Right.
And Ulthos, I don't even know what that is. On the flip side, Digital Spy suggests that a series could take place on a third or fourth continent entirely. Forget about Westeros and Essos. Though they haven't been mentioned on the current HBO series, Ulthos is supposed to be wooded and southeast of where our heroes live. Sothorios is, as one might expect, also to the south. Depending on how many of these prospective spin-offs are filmed and then picked up to series, we could be seeing all these locations in the future of the Thrones universe and more. So that's exciting. A lot of possibilities there.
My God, so many.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens, really. I'm super down for any offshoot series, as I'm sure everybody is
we'll
well
be
aware.
fiending, are you kidding? Everybody will be fiending. Super
fiending. Yeah, I'm like about ready to infiltrate HBO right now just to find out what the prospective series would be. Mm-hmm. So curious. The fifth series that is under production, interestingly, is being co-developed by Brian Cogman, who's one of the great Game of Thrones directors. I think he directed the battle at Castle Black and a number of other really popular episodes. And GoM himself, George R.R. Martin, is working on this one spinoff. So it wouldn't surprise me if we ended up with more than one spinoff, which would be awesome. It'd end up being like Stargate, which is my all-time favorite TV franchise.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I love Game of Thrones. It's the best TV show, but when you compare Game of Thrones with Stargate, there's like 3 complete series of Stargate.
Right.
You know, with like 18 seasons total or something like that. So kind of hard to fight against that. Really good show if you guys haven't seen it. SG-1, Atlantis, etc. Our next article is by Blasting News US. Game of Thrones Season 8. Is Tyrion the prince who was promised? Theories about Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage's real identity, are now swirling again. After he surprisingly surpassed freeing Daenerys, Emilia Clarke dragons, Rhaegal and Viserion from the dungeon without being eaten, a lot of Game of Thrones theorists assumed that the imp is also a Targaryen. In George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire novels, which the show is based on, Daenerys is set to find 2 more Targaryens to emulate the 3-headed dragon of their house sigils. Now that Jon Snow, Kit Harington, is confirmed to be a Targaryen, will Tyrion complete the 3-headed dragon? Dany's vision of the 3-headed dragon. According to IGN, in the quote, A Song of Ice and Fire novel, Daenerys originally wants to imitate the victory of her ancestors, Aegon I Targaryen and his sister wives Visenya and Rhaenys Targaryen. Aside from depicting their three-headed dragon sigil, they, too, can ride each of their three dragons. Dany also had a vision of Rhaegar saying the dragon has 3 heads, which has not been seen in the book's TV adaptation, Game of Thrones. Instead, it's when she's in the House of the Undying in Karth. She's walking... I read a passage in Still Smug a few weeks ago. She's walking along and sees an open door, and Rhaegar is standing there next to a woman holding a newborn baby, and she asks if he has a name, and he says Aegon Targaryen, the one true, like the best name for a king. And she asks if, because he's sitting there next to his harp, it's the Red Viper's sister, Elia Martell. She asks, will you write him a song? And he says he has a song, and it is the Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh.
Interestingly. So he may have been wrong about that, because that little baby Aegon is supposedly dead, by the mountain, like we mentioned. So maybe he jumped the gun a little bit and was really referring to Jon Snow. Yeah, pretty interesting. So instead, on the TV show, she saw her dead husband Khal Drogo and their deceased son Rhaego at the end of the television show's second season. With that, there might be a possibility that Tyrion could end up as a Targaryen in the novel series and not in the television program. As George R.R. Martin is not yet done writing the book's 6th installment, The Winds of Winter, the show's 7th and 8th seasons are now handled by its executive producers D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. Also, it might not be possible that the showrunners can successfully adapt everything from the novel series to the television. Well, yet it's not possible. There's so much stuff that's not even included.
I know, right?
Yeah. The Prince That Was Promised. Aside from Daenerys' vision, A Song of Ice and Fire also featured Tyrion designing a special saddle fit for Bran Stark's situation. He even received prophetic works from the Red Priest overseas. But as the television show didn't tackle everything in the book and Game of Thrones, Season 8 only has 6 episodes. D.B. Weiss and David Benioff should think of a great twist to reveal that Tyrion is actually Dany's half-brother. So in my opinion, since Viserion has been killed and turned into a white dragon at this point, I think that symbolically symbolizes the death of the Tyrion Targaryen plotline on the TV show. I don't think that they're going to do it, because he won't even have a dragon to ride at this point. With that, the article says the Queen's hand could be potentially the prince who was promised. Could he possibly be Azor Ahai? The show's start of production. In other news, Liam Cunningham, who plays the role of Davos Seaworth, recently confirmed that Game of Thrones Season 8 will officially start its production on October 9th, which is a couple days ago at this point. So podcast got delayed a couple days. I was super sick. I would have sounded like this every day talking, and everybody would have unsubscribed. The TV show's cast members will once again be reunited for a table read that will start on Sunday, October 9th until Monday, October 10th. Then we start rehearsals, then we start shooting, he said at New York Comic-Con. Damn! I was at New York Comic-Con and I missed Sir Davos Seaworth.
Oh, man.
Brutal. Well, I guess that's what I get for not even paying attention to what was happening at Comic-Con, like looking into anything. I just sort of walked around. I went to the X-Files panel. That was cool, though.
Nice.
Okay, our next article is also from Bustle. Where was Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones Season 7? The show needs to bring her back ASAP. With this season wrapped, every fan should be wondering where Lyanna Mormont was during Game of Thrones Season 7. Even with all the action at Winterfell over 2017's 7 episodes, we barely caught sight of the Bear Queen. Lyanna appeared in Dragonstone and Stormborn, but they gave mere glimpses of her character. After allowing fans to fall in love with the steely-eyed feminist during Season 6, the creators ripped her away from them in the penultimate season. It's hard not to see that as a mistake. There's no shortage of strong female characters in Game of Thrones, of course, but Lyanna Mormont brings something unique to the table. Women like Cersei Lannister, Arya Stark, and Daenerys Targaryen are unquestionably strong, but they're devious as well. They're complicated, layered characters, but they verge into some very troubling territory on occasion. Spend enough time with a character, and you'll be privy to all of her flaws. But in the case of Lyanna Mormont, fans either haven't had that chance, or she is honorable through and through. Since other Since either option involves spending more time with the fearsome young warrior to find out, adding the Bear Queen to storylines is a win-win scenario. At the moment, she feels like a young Brienne of Tarth, an incorruptible force for good, who thinks and acts for herself. She refuses to be cowed by older male voices or to do what's expected, which makes her a beacon of feminism, shining out of the center of the story. With such a strong, compelling character waiting in the wings, it feels like a waste not to use her. After all, this is the girl whose resolve serves as a gut check, even to the Starks themselves. If a little girl is in charge of the armies of Bear Island, doesn't flinch in the face of danger. How can Danger Will Robinson. How can grown men and women who sit beside her justify their own trepidation? How can the Starks themselves? When Jon Snow was able to convince her to declare House Mormont for the Starks, it was a turning point in that storyline, and the other Northern Lords soon followed suit. When Arya was attempting to shame Sansa for the message she wrote under duress, she name-dropped Lady Mormont to discourage her sister from claiming childish ignorance. And you know what? It worked. So even if the mention of a character is strong enough to alter the show's plot and jolt her peers into thinking clearly, think how effective it would be to work the pint-sized ruler more fully into the plot. She could have easily been more of a presence at Winterfell during the discussions between Jon Snow and the rest of the Northern Lords. During the tangled, unnecessary confusion between Sansa and Arya, Lyanna could have served as a voice of reason. She's one of the most rational minds in the series, so any number of characters could have gone to the young queen for advice. She's not a queen, though. She's just a lady.
She's just a lady.
Yeah. In fact, if Sansa and Arya had sought her counsel earlier, we could have saved ourselves multiple episodes worth of petty posturing between the two sisters, although it would have made Littlefinger's ultimate demise much less surprising. This was a season where almost no one was operating at the top of their intelligence. Cersei failed to kill Tyrion when she knew he was entering King's Landing. A force of Westerosi set out to try to capture a White in a plan so foolish that it resulted in the death of one of Daenerys' 3 dragons. The Maesters refused to believe in the White Walkers. A calm, collected voice of reason to break through all of that would have been incredibly refreshing. And that's what Lyanna represents. At the end of the day, Lyanna Mormont is a badass, empowered girl who turns in kick-ass performances every time she graces the screen. Let's give her more opportunities in Season 8. I second that notion. How about you,
third
Melly?
it.
That's what I thought.
That's what
That'd be great. I love Lady Lyanna. Triple L, Little Lady Lyanna. She's awesome. All right, now it's time for Raven's Calls.
That was my tamed down raven.
That was a good
That
one.
raven was chilling.
We are back for Raven's Calls. You want to start off, Melly?
Sure. Oh, yeah, I'll give you a break. That was a lot of reading. That was a lot of copy you had to read. This is from Laura Sotelo. It's actually probably just Sotelo. Yeah, anyways. I made that a little too Italian.
Sotelo.
Sotelo. There's not a double L. Anyways. Ha 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 ha. Good old Bronn. Nothing like a woman after a good fight. Such a bittersweet episode. Ned was almost out of there. Damn you, Littlefinger. Damn you. That's what I said, Laura. And to think he's the one responsible for so much. Ned and Jaime, that sword fight, though. Such humble beginning for the series.
Wendy Ott Eppers says, I love this honest exchange between Robert and Cersei. Robert admits he never felt anything for Cersei. Could this have been Cersei? Why Cersei decided to help the boar? I think it may have been Wendy.
I do
Good
too.
call.
I think he had a chance to just like fucking fake it till you make it, and he was like, I haven't had shit feelings for you ever. I was like, anyways.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. This is Luke Pilling or Piling. If I'm screwing that up.
Luke the Low Duke.
Luke wahoo?
The Low Duke.
The Low Duke. Luke the Low Duke. Really enjoying rewatching the series again, taking the time to notice things like the audition of the Vale. Taking the time to notice things like the addition of the Vale to this title sequence is really nice. For this episode in particular, the conversations we overhear from Arya's perspective between Varys and Illyrio.
Illyrio.
Illyrio is probably the one
so
that...
weird.
Illyrio. is probably the one that hit the hardest this time round, where it didn't register nearly so much me first time. Well, that was like me watching it the second time anyways. Also really enjoyed the conversation between Robert and Cersei. You can really see why both characters are the way they are. It's mentioned a few times. It's mentioned a few times in the series that Cersei did actually like Robert at the start. Makes you wonder how differently she would be now, 17 years later, if Robert had just returned the affection.
Yeah,
Seriously,
right.
He only had eyes. Anyways.
Yeah, it may have been hopeless after he said, Lyanna!
I know.
In bed after their wedding night.
God.
Oh, man. Yeah, Jodie Wadward, could you explain the Varys and Illyrio conversation? Having watched the episode again, I still don't understand the importance of it. Also, love the podcast and rewatching the season again.
Yay.
So, we talked about it a little before, but I think they're just talking about how things are moving too fast for their plan. They're planning on using Khal Drogo and that whole army to retake the Seven Kingdoms and install a Targaryen again as king. But things are falling apart so quickly over here in the Seven Kingdoms, with Ned figuring out what's going on and war about to break out between the Lion and the Wolf. These big houses that Varys is, Illyrio is saying we need more time to gather our army in the east, and Varys is saying hurry up, like shit is hitting the fan here. So I think that's basically the what it boils down to. They have a plan, and things are happening too quickly over here, so they're trying to get their shit together as well as possible, I think. And we have a response from Luke, the Low Duke. It is clear that Varys and Illyrio are concerned there will be a war between the Starks and Lannisters, and Illyrio remarks, "What good is war now? We're not ready. We need time. Khal Drogo will not make his move before his son is born," implying that they want this to happen. I can't remember how explicitly Illyrio's role is explained on the show, but Varys and he have been planning for a Targaryen to sit on the throne again and unite the Seven Kingdoms for some time. Now, end of Season 7, it makes sense for Varys to be supporting of Daenerys. Sir Duncan, do you see it this way? I do. I think I agree fully. Mr. Low Duke of Devonshire, if I'm remembering that correctly. All right, Melly, your turn.
All right, this is from May or Mai?
It's May.
Mrs. May. Almardini. I'm getting all the Italian last names, even though it's probably not Italian. I'm just making it up. Ignore me. Anyways, loved the interaction between Varys and Littlefinger. I like that you never knew where Varys stood, but he was always on the good side. That's what I said too. A Targaryen at the head of a Dothraki army. Even Robert, who's a fool, could foresee this is a problem. Interesting that they only worry about their male heirs. I know, right? He predicted what would happen when the Dothraki cross. Too bad Cersei is too stubborn to listen. That interaction was everything. Lyanna's ghost would come back to haunt them both, and Robert gives Cersei the justification she needed for what she's done and is about to do.
Damn, everybody's picking up on it this time. Awesome.
And then the next word is literally damn. Damn, LF. It's like you were psychic. Damn, LF. Ned almost gets away if it wasn't for him. Littlefinger. Everybody was just damning Littlefinger left and right. It was literally one of those, fuck, just go, Ned. Ned versus Jaime. Wonder who would have won.
I know, right? We never get to find out.
We don't. Kat can see her sister is cray-cray. I think she realizes she made a huge mistake.
A huge mistake. Yeah, she is totally cray-cray.
She's out of her mind.
Adam Hutchinson says, "Bow ya shits." And this episode made me miss the Robert-Ned dynamic. Mm-hmm. I agree, Adam.
I do too.
So fun.
Especially the beginning of the episode when it was still, light. Light-ish, light-esque. Laurie Himsel-Kane. Oh, and of course, this would be the appropriate one for me to read. Theon's junk. R.I.P. R.I.P. indeed, Laurie.
Ugh. Yeah, sadly, it probably rests in pieces. Oh.
Yeah,
sorry.
it rests in, yeah.
We have an email from Lady Caroline of House Collins. Hi, Duncan, Jason, and all. I made the mistake of taking notes on this one, and Duncan knows I'm long-winded, so feel free to use any of this or none, if time doesn't allow. I still can't believe you read my whole email on the Still Smug episode. You guys are the best. Here's my top 5 for your perusal. Screw it, we'll just read the whole thing. 5. Tourney scene. I love Loras' victory over the mountain, and the proof that outsmarting Gregor Clegane works, and may work in the future? I think so. I think it will. The mare in heat clearly symbolizes the intelligence of the female side of House Martell. Oh, that's a good observation. Mini Clegane Bull ensues as Sandor comes to Loras' rescue. The Hound looks so uncomfortable playing the hero. Renly jokes that he'll buy Littlefinger a friend. We know how he's pretty much a sociopath, so maybe Renly knows more than he lets on. You want to read number 4? We can alternate between Carolyn's top 5.
Number 4, cool one-on-ones. Littlefinger and Varys, very memorable scene, even though originally I had no idea what the point was. The last time you saw me or the last time I saw you. It feels a little high school stalker without any context. Yeah.
Great.
The second time around, again, it's like, oh yeah, okay, God. So much more comfortable now I know what the heck is going on. Robb and Ned when Robb's too fat for his armor. Ned and Sir Barristan Selmy. Probably the last time they get to talk one-on-one. They clearly wish they could have fought together or even against each other. They also mention Rickard Stark again. Mm-hmm. Robb and Cersei. What harm could Lyanna Stark's ghost do to either of us? Her ghost tells Bran who Jon really is, and her son may just kill you in the wars to come.
Oh,
I know,
snap.
right? These
Wow.
are wow. You put your Thunken cap on.
Yeah, really.
Robb also says, "What's bigger, 501 could be foreshadowing for the War of Five Kings."
Oh, great pickup.
Definitely,
Man, wow.
I know. Definitely hinting that the kingdoms are dividing already. Ned and Varys knowing now how Jon Arryn died makes you see the whole Squire thing in a new way. We know the Squire wasn't responsible, but maybe he knew something.
Yep. Number 3, the small council meeting where you see Ned's fear come true, which validates his decision to keep Jon a secret. I can now read in his face that this could have been Jon that Robb was plotting to kill. It's painful to watch. The first time I saw this, I obviously didn't want him to kill Daenerys because I liked her, but I still saw Robert as a good guy. This perspective shows him in a much muddier and darker light.
Mm-hmm. Number 2, the list of people that know more than Ned. Arya already knows that his life is in danger. She voices her concern to Geordie. Geordie? Is it Geordie or Jory? Yeah, Jory.
Yeah.
Although I like Geordie from a different show. One of my faves. Tyrion tells Kat that Lysa has changed. I don't think it crossed Ned's mind that Lysa could be the one who killed Jon Arryn. Tyrion clearly has a better handle on what Kat's sister has become. Robb talks to Cersei about all the backstabbing in King's Landing. He knows he's leading the wolf to the slaughter. Ned talks to Littlefinger in the brothel before he's apprehended, and it's so clear Littlefinger knows exactly what happened to Jon Arryn. Only 2 people know less than Ned, Renly and Loras, are such idiots. Love the chest shaving scene, but oh my god, are they dumb. It was a really good dialogue between them, though. I thought that was actually a really nice scene. It was well written. And the chest and the shaving. And then he stopped. I noticed, this is just me nitpicking, but there was a bunch of hair still around the nipple, and he did like one last shave, and then he wipes the chest off. I mean, no. There would have still been hair around the nipple.
Noticed that too. Then they cut to the next scene, and he's like totally clean shaven.
All right, okay.
Or the next shot.
Glad I'm not alone.
1. Echoes from Season 1 to Season 7. Jaime and Ned's sword fight reminds me of Bran's flashback from the Tower of Joy. Jaime's face shows the same letdown when his kinsman gets Ned in the back of the leg, as Ned does when Howland Reed stabs Sir Arthur Dayne in the back. I don't think Jaime got saved in the same way, but it cuts short a knightly fight to the death. I imagine both men would choose to die that way, and possibly it's the only time they'll feel truly alive. Definitely more aware of Jaime and Ned's similarities this time around. Arya with the castle guard at the Red Keep versus Arya with the Winterfell guards in season 7. I think the lines might even be the same. I love that she says one of them was fat too when Ned asks who they were. So funny. We see Varys.
Was fat.
Oh, that wasn't with the guards though. That was the people. That was Ned and Illyrio. She's referring to, or sorry, Ned, Varys and Illyrio. She's referring to Varys at that point.
Oh, right.
We see Varys masterminding the plot to kill Daenerys when the Mother of Dragons threatens to burn him alive for this very plan. That's so funny. Yeah, remember that? She's all pissed that he participated in planning to kill her.
Oh,
so we actually see that sort of happening this part of the series. I feel like watching it this time, I actually know what is going on, and it's so much more enjoyable watching Littlefinger and Varys and knowing what their ultimate MOs are. In Robb and Cersei's scene, they start talking about the fight the Dothraki, and Robb actually says only a fool would meet the Dothraki in an open field. Yeah, Jaime did that this season. Beautiful fool. Loving the rewatch. I did it before last season too, but it's great to do it while following along with the podcast. Keep up the good work.
Nice.
Carolyn Collins.
Caroline,
Thanks,
that was
Caroline.
a lot of really good
stuff. Really, yeah. I don't mind reading awesome long emails at all.
I kind of wish that I could beam myself into your homes. That's so pervy. I wish I could beam myself into your homes and just stare at you.
Do.
No, and like watch the show. Like if I could watch the show with you or Caroline, and then it's just there's so much detail that it's the kind of show. It's almost interactive. Like it's almost like an interactive game where people are like pointing you and you're like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't even think of that.
You don't want to watch with me though, because oftentimes when I'm watching with people, I'll end up pausing like every 5 seconds to explain the significance of something.
Well,
you may
maybe I'll beam
it.
myself into Caroline's home. No, I would love to hang out with you too. You can
and
pause
Caroline
it.
or Carolyn, let me know how to pronounce your name. I want to make sure.
Carolyn or Caroline.
Carolyn.
Yeah.
Caroline.
Caroline. Stay away from the light. We know it's not that.
Thank you, Lady Caroline, for writing in. Looking forward to hearing more from you. All right, that's our show, episode 47. Thanks for listening, everybody. And as usual, a huge mega thanks to Lisa Moreno and Lara Willie Swink for gathering news and feedback.
Yeah.
Big ups to you guys for your loyal help. We love you.
You're here.
If you like the podcast, you can help us in a couple of different ways. You can go to Facebook and give us a like on our page. You can throw us a rating or a review on iTunes, and we're trying to build the listenership during the break between season 7 and 8 by continuing to provide content on a weekly basis throughout the gap. So hopefully, more people will figure out that we exist because we'll be consistently providing material. So if you like this show, go and give us a review on iTunes. Maybe that'll help bring it to more people's attention.
Yeah.
We were sort of late into the game, so I know we've definitely have fewer listeners than other Game of Thrones podcasts. And if you're really a Game of Thrones fan, you'll notice I said fewer, just like Stannis would have. So that'll give you some incentives to go write a review for us. No pressure. Thank you. If you'd like to call, you can always call us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast. I try to be really active on there, and I love interacting with all you guys, so feel free to message us and post and comment and everything, and you'll hear from me for sure.
Nice. And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com. Do it.
Definitely. Yeah, lots of fun podcasts. We get the Walking Dead cast, which is legendary. That's like first podcast I ever listened to. And now I'm here. We've got a new one, Strange Indeed, hosted by Rima and Sean, which you guys will really like. Everybody seems to love it. They were in the top 10 podcasts on iTunes a couple weeks ago. Maybe they still are, for all I know. They're rewatching season 1 of Stranger Things right now and preparing to podcast about season 2 after it is released on Netflix.
Nice.
Which is awesome. So go Rima and Sean. Keep kicking ass. And you guys should go check that out, especially if you like Stranger Things. Next episode, we will be talking about season 1, episode 6, A Golden Crown, which I'm sure you guys remember. Viserys gets the Drogo treatment, a crown that men will tremble to behold, which is really exciting. And there will be Still Smug at some point. I'm sorry I keep saying that. I've just been super, super swamped. But I will get on that as soon as I have a chance to. All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
I want to see the bad man fly.
Huzzah! He's so grumpy.